more people from the informal economy into formalized systems as the IMF recommended, because Julian Zaboko sat down with the IMF managing director. For reference, check out ntvkenya.co.ke. So, are we overtaxed?
Let me at least give some sort of theoretical background. I hoped Professor would, and he left the job to me, which I will do very diligently. This whole question of tax to GDP ratio, it is actually not tax to GDP ratio. It's actually tax revenue to GDP ratio, which means what we are actually calculating is what the country collected from the taxes it levies. Now, it is not a very good indication of how much you're taxed. And I'll explain that. Several reasons point to that. One is the whole question of efficiency, that our tax system is not efficient. So yes, the tax rates might be high on the people who are actually paying, but inefficient, which means therefore that you will collect less. The second thing is the whole question of corruption, and he alluded to it by using a polite word of wastage, rent seeking. It's a very polite word.
Leakage.
Yes, leakage, but it is actually corruption, which means I come with some goods in Mombasa, I make some very strategic phone calls, and my goods come into the country without paying levies. It does not mean that the tax rates are low or the duty is low. It only means that some people who are well connected are not paying taxes at the right. The third reason is the Laffer curve effect, whereby you probably are charging people too much. I explained Laffer curve. Laffer curve. I explained it last time. I was hoping you've caught on.
We didn't get it. L-A-F-F-E-R.
Yes.
Thank you. I was wondering what the spelling is. Okay, Laffer curve. Okay.
So Laffer curve effect says at 0%, every Kenyan would want to pay tax.
Oh yes.
Because after all, it's 0%. At 100% of tax, no Kenyans, zero Kenyans would want to pay tax, because nobody wants to give 100% of their income. And so that means there has to be a point of equilibrium, if I can use that word, or a point of balance which will give you the most cooperation or the most compliance that most Kenyans would want to pay tax. Using Kenyans as an example. So it is possible that if you charge too high, very few Kenyans are giving you tax, and because of that, then you are collecting lower. So it does not mean that you are charging less. It only means that you are charging too high, and very few Kenyans are paying you the actual tax. This is also not including appropriations in aid. Now, appropriations in aid, this fine gentleman who studies budget for a living will tell you.
I'm still alive.
We'll tell you that appropriations in aid is what, for example, these parastatals charge you when you go to them. So this one is not included in the calculation of the tax to GDP ratio. And they are also there, and they are also material, they are significant. Therefore, it is inaccurate, for example, to say that because the tax to GDP ratio is 14%, we are not overcharging Kenyans, we are not overtaxing Kenyans. That is inaccurate. From what I have explained, then you understand that it doesn't make sense even to start and use that as an explanation that we are not overtaxing Kenyans. We are taxing Kenyans. The person who knows they are being overtaxed is the person being taxed. If he tells you that he feels he's being overtaxed, even clergy are feeling overtaxed. Clergy are coming out and saying, Mheshimiwa Rais, unatumiza. Clergy. The people who go to State House every day are complaining. That should tell you something somewhere is not good. And I pray that the people who, who actually advise His Excellency can tell him, Kiongozi, angalia hii maneno.
Are you saying clergy have to collect tax?
Clergy are complaining. They are paying tax.
Yeah, clergy are complaining. There's something you said yesterday.